Infinity? What is the name of your platform?
So my program is called Data Science Infinity.
Perfect. So what are your thoughts on the current state of data science education? Because it seems like everything is moving online.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess as a bit of background to start with, so I've been in my career in the very, very fortunate position to have interviewed hundreds of data science and analytical candidates. And the reason that I say the word fortunate to have done this, because some people don't really like that side of it, but it's taught me so much around, about, not only the candidates themselves, but also the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess, of the hiring process. And the thing that over time I've noticed is that there is a bit of a disconnect between what people are learning on, in courses, and that can be online courses on Udemy, or it can be a university master's or a university course. There is a disconnect between what people are being taught and what hiring managers are really wanting to see in the real world. And not to plug myself at all, but that was kind of the premise behind why I went on and created Data Science Infinity, to try and bridge that gap. But to go into a little bit more detail around what I mean, it's so common to see candidates doing things like jumping into deep learning before getting a really good understanding of, the more fundamental machine learning algorithms and other techniques that can essentially solve like 95% of business problems if they even needed machine learning thrown at them in the first place. I'm seeing a huge volume of candidates who are very focused on skills and tools, and maybe not focused enough on the value that they can add, or the impact they can have with those skills and tools. And don't get me wrong, those skills and tools, they're super important. They are, they just don't add value in isolation. So they need to be used in clever and appropriate and often quite simple ways to really go on and solve business problems.
Yeah, I do have some thoughts on this. I think that there's some things going on kind of in the education space, and that skills education is being commodified. And the kind of the outcrop of that is that people are getting certifications. And it seems like there's a disconnect between certifications and what most of the hiring managers that we've had on the podcast are looking for. So Bethany Klobanov is a great example of this. She hires people with Tableau and Power BI skills. And I asked her directly, do you care about a certification? And she's like, certifications give you a base level of indication that you know where the buttons are on a tool, but all of that is pretty much Googleable. What is much more effective is telling how you use that tool to drive a business outcome. And it seems like essentially what's happening is that the education space is capitalizing on people having this kind of anxiety around, I want to get into the analytics space, and if I have this tool, it makes them feel like it's like a self-soothing mechanism of, I do have analytic skills, so therefore I can get the job. And I'm wondering if that's going to kind of correct itself out. What are your thoughts on certifications in general?
I agree completely with what you've said. But the premise is, as a data scientist or a data analyst, or anyone in the data space, really, we're here to solve problems, right? We're not there to just sit in the room and be smart. It doesn't actually do anybody any favors. But yeah, there are so many different online courses that you can take, and so many certifications that you can get. And I guess, over the last year, with how things have been in the world, that's probably kicked that off even more. And I actually put a post up on LinkedIn about this morning, and it was essentially that, the online education market or industry, that's still only, a baby compared to where it's going to go. I just see that continuing to grow. But the most important thing that we can do, especially, as content or as course creators, is to make sure that our educational priority is firmly on getting students results, not on getting students certificates or getting them degrees, because there is a difference there. Some people will say, well, they're kind of the same thing, right? Well, they're not the same thing. Getting a certificate is one thing, and I'm not here to say that certificates aren't a good thing. Like, if you get a certificate, you should be super proud of that. You worked hard to get that. You should post it on LinkedIn. You should put it on your resume because you have done some hard work to achieve something, and that's awesome. But just don't think that that on its own is going to hold any weight with a hiring manager necessarily, because I agree, it doesn't show the hiring manager, or it doesn't prove to the hiring manager anything in particular. So, I mean, do all of the certificates, the courses, and get the certificates. That is a great way to learn. My advice is that when you put them on your resume, to make them hold some weight, all you need to do, and it's a very sort of simple thing, is underneath each certificate that you've earned, put a one-liner which says key learnings, and list the things that you think would interest people to know about what you've learned from that course, or what you got with that certificate, because that takes it from just text. I got this Python certificate. That doesn't show me anything as a hiring manager, but showing that you learned web scraping that could be used to do this, or whatever it may be, that then gets the cogs in the hiring manager's brain going, well, I see where that could be used here. That actually means something to me. So I'm not in any way saying don't go for certificates. I'm just saying frame the things you learned in a way that is all about the value you can add. Because that, at the end of the day, that's what a hiring manager needs. They need you to come into their team and solve problems.
Right. Okay. That is a really good point that you bring up. And it makes me think of the difference between a degree and a certificate. Because I know that some jobs you have to have a certain level of degree. And you're going to be weeded out of the candidate pool if you don't have a master's or you don't have an undergraduate degree. But I don't think that, to use a Harry Potter analogy, the certifications are kind of that sorting hat, like you go to Gryffindor, you go to Slytherin or wherever. But I think you're right. It does send a signal that you have at least, because there's a cost there of that you have to pass a certification exam. So that means that you had to study. And I know with some of the exams, you can have Google up, but you can't Google the entire curriculum and pass within that time frame. So I think there is somewhat of a signal there, but it's not like the same signal of I spent 4 years and took all of these credit hours to get this degree.
Yeah, I mean, there is, it's a hard one. Like if you've got a master's in data science, for example, that proves something. It definitely does. It doesn't prove everything, though. And like I said before, I have been in this very fortunate position to have interviewed and screened hundreds of candidates at companies like Amazon and Sony, where the bar is very high, and you do see people coming in who have PhDs or they have masters, and they're not the best candidate. There's somebody who learned in a much more unconventional way, who you see the way that they think and the way they solve problems and the way they can add value to the team and the business, and you choose them because they're the one that the metric that I'm basing my decision on isn't what letters you have after your name. It's what can I see you doing for me as a hiring manager? Like hiring managers wouldn't say it, but the thing they need is for you to make them look good. It's to make the team look good, and it's to make the company money, which makes them look good. They're not going to say that, but at the end of the day, that's the metric which you're competing against. I think a PhD or a master's, that's more a filtering tool for a recruitment agent, because they think that's an easier way to narrow down the pool. But I think there are better ways to do that. It's not super easy, but I think having some sort of easy, sort of transparent skills-based assessment early on in the funnel, which weeds out anybody that doesn't have the core competencies for the role. And then you sort of move the rest of the people who have the skills to do what you need. You move them into the part of the interview funnel where you can invest more time in them, and you can understand what makes them tick and how they turn sort of business problems into data science or analytical solutions. You can invest that time in them. I don't think having a PhD or having a master's necessarily tells you that. And I'm not, again, like what I said before, I'm not in any way bagging a PhD. I think a PhD is an incredible achievement, and you should be super proud of it. I don't think from an interviewer point of view that it tells me everything about whether you're going to be the best candidate for the role.